Last time, we left our hero Michelangelo high above the chapel floor, paint on the brush, vision in full force, and one of the most astonishing ceilings in history beginning to take shape. But genius alone does not finish a project like this, and inspiration, sadly, does not make power go away. Because while Michelangelo was up there wrestling beauty into existence, other forces were gathering below. Money, authority, expectation, deadlines, pain, pressure, and of course, our extremely powerful Pope, who was not exactly known for his gentle little check-ins. Because this is the part of the story where the masterpiece stops looking like a miracle and starts looking like a fight. A fight with patronage, a fight with the body, a fight with exhaustion, a fight with the terrifying possibility that something this big could fail in public. So yes, the ceiling is sublime, but it is also strained, pushed, watched, rushed, demanded into being. And that matters, because part of what makes the Sistine Chapel ceiling so extraordinary is not just what Michelangelo made, but what he had to survive to make it. This is Art Happens, the divine mess of art history, presented by J Squared Atelier. I'm James William Moore, your chaotic tour guide through art history, and this is Behind the Brush, Michelangelo versus the Ceiling, Part 2, Artistry Under Duress. So before we go any further, we need to talk about the man downstairs in the fancy robes, because every good cliffhanger needs tension, and every overworked artistic hero apparently needs one extremely powerful authority figure, making the whole thing harder than it already is. Let's set the scene. Rome, early 16th century. The Catholic Church is not simply a religious institution. It's a force, a machine, a power center, a making of meaning, image, and authority before modern media even existed. And at the center of that machine is Pope Julius II. Julius was not subtle. He wanted legacy, he wanted monument, he wanted scale, he wanted history to remember his name in marble, paint, architecture, and power. This was not a man interested in doing things halfway. And then we have Michelangelo, already famous, already brilliant, already not exactly easy to work with. And I say that with affection, because the history of great artists is always the history of strong personalities making everybody around them tired. Michelangelo saw himself first as a sculptor. That matters, because when Julius pushes the ceiling commission onto him, Michelangelo is not being handed his dream project. He is being handed a problem, a massive one. He is being asked to prove himself in a medium he did not consider his truest language. And right there, that's where the tension starts. This is not artist meets destiny. This is artist meets pressure, and pressure changes everything, because suddenly the question is no longer, what does Michelangelo most want to make? The question becomes, what happens when one of the most ambitious artists alive gets cornered into one of the most ambitious commissions imaginable? And honestly, that's a much better story. Now let's talk about patronage. Because art history loves to romanticize genius while quietly skipping over past the money and power structures that made the work possible. Patrons are never just background decoration. Patrons shape what gets made, who gets hired, what scale is possible, what subjects are approved, what deadlines matter, and what compromises have to happen. And when your patron is the Pope, that is not support. That is not a friendly grant. That is power in ceremonial robes. Julius was not commissioning a ceiling because he wanted something pretty overhead. He wanted a statement about the church, about authority, about divine order, about cultural supremacy, and yes, about himself. projects like this are never neutral. They are religion, politics, image control, and legacy, all at once. So Michelangelo is not simply painting because inspiration struck. He is painting under command. He is painting inside a hierarchy. He is painting with full knowledge that the man paying for this project has more power than he does, and very likely less patience. And if you have ever tried to make something while somebody important hovers over the process, asking versions of, "How's it going?" with just enough pressure to ruin your nervous system, then you understand this story. It's one thing to make art freely. It's another thing to make it while being watched, financed, judged, and rushed. It's now starting to sound like the Great British Bake Off. That does not make the ceiling less impressive. It makes it more impressive, because part of what we're looking at is brilliance that survived interference. Now, the pain. Because the Sistine Chapel has been so thoroughly absorbed into the category of masterpiece that people forget it was made by a body, a real body, a tired body, a strained body, a body under constant physical stress. And despite the popular image, Michelangelo was not laying flat on his back like some Renaissance lounge singer with a paintbrush. He was up on scaffolding, working in punishing conditions, head tilted, arm raised, posture wrecked, paint dripping where paint should never drip. He wrote about the misery. Thank goodness he did, because otherwise history would have polished this whole ordeal into one fantasy of effortless greatness. But it wasn't effortless. It was grueling, and I think that matters, because we so often talk about masterpieces like the artist somehow transcended his body. No, the body is where the work happened. The body absorbed the job. The body paid the bill. And there is something almost poetic about that here, because Michelangelo painted so many idealized heroic bodies while his own body was suffering in the process of making them. Above him, perfection. Inside him, strain. So the ceiling ends up holding both aspiration and damage. And honestly, that feels very true to art. And then there is the psychological cost. Because think about the mental environment of this project. It is huge, slow-moving, public, symbolic, impossible to hide inside. Michelangelo knows he is being evaluated. He knows the work has to justify its scale. He knows it has to satisfy a powerful patron. He knows it will be seen, discussed, measured, remembered. Failure here would not be private. And that kind of pressure changes the air around a project. This is not the work of somebody coasting. This is the work of somebody wrestling. Wrestling with material, with theology, with scale, with expectation, and with his own standards. And sometimes that last one is the worst, because external pressure is terrible, but internal pressure, that voice in the artist's head that says, this has to matter. This has to be worthy. This has to justify the pain. This has to outlast me. That voice can be brutal, and yet it can also push the work into a kind of intensity that you can feel centuries later. The Sistine ceiling does not feel casual. It does not feel decorative in the empty sense. Even when it is beautiful, it is beauty under pressure, and that's the part of why it stays alive. You can feel the stakes in it. So when we look at the Sistine Chapel ceiling now, it is easy to see the glory first, the scale, the brilliance, the beauty, the sheer audacity of it. But I think the part of what makes it stay alive is that it does not feel easy. It does not feel casual. It does not feel like the product of comfort. It feels wrestled into being. And maybe that is the part of why it still hits. Because beneath all that grandeur is something deeply human. A person under pressure, a body absorbing the cost, a mind trying to hold the whole impossible thing together, and an artist making something monumental without the luxury of peace. Michelangelo gave the world a masterpiece, but also gave us a reminder that great art is not always born from serenity. Sometimes it comes out of tension, out of demand, out of exhaustion, out of refusing to let the thing collapse, even when everything around it says it should. And honestly, that may be its own kind of miracle. This has been Art Happens, the divine mess of art history, presented by J Squared Atelier. I'm James William Moore, your chaotic tour guide through art history. Thanks for listening, thanks for looking closer, and thanks for making room in your day for the beautiful, difficult, complicated mess that great art leaves behind. And until next time, keep looking closer.